We are about to transform this nostalgic Bionicle into a modern-day masterpiece by blending together insane detailing, extreme articulation, and S-tier build techniques that you should totally steal if you want to take your next mock to the next level. Not only that, but we're also going to build up this superposable Takanuva revamp using my newly developed Mtorin frame. We've got a lot to cover today, so enough yapping, let's break it down. I want this torso to serve as the basis for my upcoming Toa Nuva revamps, but we'll need to beef up the joints in the shoulders and hips to accommodate their larger weapons and armor plating. But the shoulder joint replacements turned out to be a little bit more tricky than I was expecting. I want to use this massive rotation joint, but it requires a 3-hole connection. I normally use these 1x4 Technic bricks to support this connection, but this 4x6 torso plate only has 2 studs near the top, which means that using a 1x4 brick would extend the upper torso, making our model huge and just look kinda stupid. Fail number 1. Luckily, I remembered the arm connection from Kai's Climber mech uses a 1x2 Technic brick with 2 holes and a 1x1 Technic brick with 1 hole to facilitate this connection. Using this type of connection only raises the height of the torso by 1 stud instead of 2, which will keep our revamp from looking like Johnny Bravo. Since we are allocating all of our skill points to the armor, the internal structure of this revamp needs to be simple and sturdy. Just a few plates of various sizes and shapes. But I quickly learned that simple doesn't necessarily mean easy. We have to stack the plates up high enough so that we can lock down the rotation brick at the waist, but not too high because we still need to lock down the shoulders later on with our usual bracket technique. If we throw in a bracket here, we can get the right levels and add some detailing to the chest later. Win-win. We'll also use a couple of brackets on either side of the abdomen. This will be essential for adding some cool ribcage detailing later. Now we can get started with building up our armor plating. If we mix up the plate height, our final product will have a more ornate gilded look, which is going to be absolutely dope. These 45-degree slope pieces will help shape the bottom of the chest armor. I'm using these red 1x2 pieces because I don't have any gold ones on hand, but it's cool because you won't see them anyway. Pearl gold is actually a rarer color than you think, especially for basic bricks, plates, and brackets, which is why I'm using so many of these off-color rounded plates to get our levels just right. The instructions will use a more accurate color palette, so make sure that you look out for that. Which reminds me, if you want to get the instructions or the part list for this build, you can snag them at the link down below. And if you're subscribed to the channel, you'll get a special discount code if you take a look at the post tab on our page. We'll throw in a few more of these 45-degree slopes. Okay, now we're going to get creative and use these bar plates to add some texture to the abs. And this curved slope piece will make a great collar. Lock in with me here for a second because this next detail is small, but it's probably my favorite part of the entire build. If we stack these curved slopes on those ab brackets from earlier, they'll add a nice natural curve to the shape of the armor, but I think we can still go even harder. I stole the hand from this Ninjago mech because I thought that it would make the perfect rib cage detailing element. Sometimes small touches like these are all you need to take a mock from good to great. I want to use these massive Ninjago armor pieces to replicate the original Nuva shoulder armor. They're also the perfect shape to cover up these massive shoulder joints. We'll start off the shoulder assembly with a couple of these Among Us plates. Shout out to Mitch Builds. If you know, you know. Then we'll throw in a couple of these clips. That is exactly why we need to lock these shoulders down. Oh my God. We'll throw in a few more plates and a couple of socket plates on the back. We'll use these socket plates to store the weapons later. We'll use a couple of these 2x3 curved slopes to provide the actual lockdown, and then just top off with a couple more Among Us plates and a couple of these 1x2 slopes from the same family of pieces. We'll throw in a couple of these ingot pieces here to add some more texture. Flipping the model over, I want to give the illusion that the armor actually wraps around the whole model, so let's add in some of these gold plates too. Okay, let's wrap up this thing with the pelvis. We're going to use the same 1x2 rotation brick as our previous revamps, but this torso already feels way heavier than the others, and I already know that I'm gonna give this thing some big weapons, so these ball joints aren't gonna cut it. Let's use a couple more of these rotation joints for the hip connection, which feels perfect because the hips will ultimately be the same width, but twice as strong. I really wanted to include pistons in this build somehow, but there wasn't really an easy way to work my typical lightsaber technique into the upper torso. So I thought it might work to replicate the pistons at the waist with these clip pieces instead. It also filled in a little bit of this gap, so it's a double win if you ask me. Takua's original form is iconically awkward, but actually superposable. I want to capture the vibe with this revamp by packing as much posability in as possible, which will be tricky given that we're working with such a small frame. But first, can we appreciate how drippy this light blue mask is? Oh my god. We'll use the same concept as the Golly revamp and start by adding in a few plates to this inverted slope piece. I can't talk today. Then I will throw in this socket plate for the neck connection. These Technic bricks will hold our axle connections in for the arms, and I love using these rotation bricks because this little ridge can be useful for covering up some gaps and adding in just a little bit of detail. We'll throw in this ratchet brick for our waist connection, and then a couple more brackets so that we can add some detailing to the shoulders later. We'll use some of these curved slopes for shaping the chest and a couple more brackets to shape the sides. We'll tile everything off and boom, the upper torso is done. We'll use the same waist assembly as our Toa Nuva revamps. By the way, who was your favorite Mtorin growing up? I think mine was Jala or Jaller, depending on when you got into Bionicle, but Takua was a close second. Oh, and whoever it was that built the boxer, that guy was pretty cool too. Oh crap, now I want to build a boxer. I really just need to spend all of my money on Lego. The arm design is super simple yet super effective. It uses my all-time favorite piece, this socket axle hole connector thing. I love this piece because it has amazing clutch power even after hundreds of uses. And I think it's because of this little rubber portion. I'd highly recommend picking a few of these up while you can. Just don't let the sticker price shock you. It's kind of expensive. The rest of the arm is pretty simple, just a few socket plates and standard plates and a simple clip finger design for the hand. The Mtorin always gave off the vibe that they were unfinished or pulled together out of scraps. I know that's not necessarily lore accurate, but that's why I went with this asymmetrical color scheme for this build. I think that it helps make each Mtorin feel more unique and individual. I'm really proud of this leg design because of the range of motion it can achieve. It really is fun to blend system, Technic, and CCBS together, so I try and incorporate a few of each piece category into all of my builds. All we need to do now is the final assembly and boom, this hyper-posable Takua is ready to accept his destiny and take on the mantle as the Toa of Light. So let's dive back into our main build. The arm design is pretty similar to the other revamps, but the upper arm has to change a little bit to accommodate this new type of connection. Most of these gray pieces come in white, but I'm so behind on placing Bricklink orders, it's crazy. Again, the instructions will have more accurate colors. We'll add in a pinhole plate to the palm so that he can carry some larger weapons. The legs are probably my least favorite part of this build though. I wanted to use my updated knee assembly, but these Bionicle hand sockets are unreliable. And since we changed the hip connection to this rotation joint, there's no clean way to attach another hand socket at the knee in the orientation that I want. So until I figure out a solution, we'll be going back to the original design using the socket brick. These curved slopes will replicate his legendary cankles nicely. All we need to do now is build up the foot and boom, we're done. Oh crap, I almost forgot the weapons. If I remember correctly, Takanuva's original design came with one staff weapon, but most of the later designs actually show him with two. So we're going to double up these blades with this awesome new trans blue Prime Empire sword piece. Now all we need are the money shots. I could not be more happy with how this turned out. This build really did push me to the limits of what I thought I could do with detailing. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end. Check out one of these videos if you're looking for some more inspiration and dope build techniques. Until we build again, peace.